right on the hit. Post bomb gets nothing effect. Has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be.
Hello and welcome to the Overwatch League recap, a talk show focused on the Overwatch League. I am BlazzinBob, and as always, I'm joined by Mel. How you doing, Mel?
Hello. I am doing wonderfully this evening. Just saying.
All right. And special guest returning to the show. He's been on multiple times. It is our good friend, podcaster now, shoutcaster. He does it all. Labasco, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's really good to be here, Bob. The first podcast for Overwatch I was ever on was Owl Recap, so I'm excited to be back. I think this is my third time now.
Yeah.
So
I think it actually might even be your fourth. Not sure.
Yeah,
I think
you're right.
It is your fourth.
I think it is 4. I should keep track of how many times I get to come on here because I always enjoy when I do, and it's the first time for this season. That's one thing for sure. So
True.
Yeah, and now you have an awesome podcast of your own with our friend of the show Ramses and Push the Point on matchthose.buttons.com. And
Also,
yeah, you're killing
can
it.
I point out that Ramses is also a Houston Outlaws fan. So it's also another great podcast, just saying.
And it
Just
does
based on
have a
that.
Dallas Fuel fan in Labasco, so it is an okay podcast for sure.
I've become more. It's funny because I've bought my first Dallas Fuel like memorabilia of any kind. I have a T-shirt that I wear, but now I'm like, there's 2 Chicago guys on Atlanta, so I've got to be an Atlanta fan, especially because of Hawk. Like Hawk is my guy, so Atlanta is becoming like that new team for me.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, well, first off, if you look back in the back here, you'll see this burn blue towel. This is something you gave to me when we first met, opening week season 2. And then if you look at the hats behind, I have 2 Dallas Fuel hats, 1 Fusion hat, which is signed by all the Fusion players from season 1. And then you'll see an Atlanta Reign hat. These are my 3 teams. Dallas is my ride or die, of course. But the other 2 are definitely my other 2 favorites. So Atlanta is a good team to be a fan of. So I'm not mad at you.
It warms my heart to know that the towel that I gave you is up and on display for everybody to see.
Yes,
I got
it
a good
is.
feeling in the heart for that one. I also had another towel that I gave to. Who did I give it to? And it was signed by everybody.
Oh, I remember. You gave it to. I forget her name. It was a girl, though, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh, Sideshow's girlfriend. God, why am I blanking on names? I should. This is a friend, and I can't think of names right now. Don't you love it when you?
That's okay.
It's okay.
That's
we
all
should
right.
change the topic so we don't talk about it too long and she, realizes you forgot her name. We'll just move on.
All right. Burn blue. Well, we always like to start the show off with thanking our recap producer, Shazir. He is the man. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. Great dude. Thank you so much for your support. Also, I'd like to thank our moderator, our Discord moderator, Loki. He's always helping us out in chat. He's always helping us out in Discord. He's just a damn fine dude. If anybody wants to help him out, message us and we can see about getting you as a mod to help Loki out and kind of make the load a little easier for him. All right. Well, tonight we're going to talk about the homestands, the games that happened. We're going to talk a little Dr. Disrespect, believe it or not. We're going to talk we're going to talk about some relocations of teams, and at the end we're going to talk about what we're all excited for or not excited for, but all a little nervous about hero pools. So we'll talk about that at the end. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So first off, Week 4 impressions. We've been doing this each week because it's changing every week. It's so different with the homestands every week to week. Something's new, something's different, something's messed up, something's better, something's worse. What were your week 4 impressions? Let's let our guest Labasco go first.
I thought week 4 was actually one of the better crowds as far as how loud that they got. They were definitely a fun crowd in Houston. Like that first
Was there
row of,
any doubt?
there was. I mean, come on. Everybody remembers whether you loved them or hate them. I was a fan of the first row that was always at all of the games. So for me, it was like, oh, this is great. Like awesome that Houston, even though they're having a rough start to their season, they're still selling out their stadium. It was a really good showing from Houston. I believe they are partnered with Esports Engine. That's like who's running everything behind the scenes, making the production happen on site. And I thought it was one of the cleaner productions that we saw, at least where it seemed like everything was on the same page for what was happening in stadium with what was happening in LA.
Yep.
What about you, Mel?
Well, I thought it was an amazing event. Seeing all
Shocker.
the Houston fans, just saying. But I think overall there was, pros and cons to it. I think that one, can we talk about Uber hosting the desk? Because he killed it.
Oh, he's
Love
just he's the best at everything he does, and he even got away with saying cock on the broadcast.
I'm pretty sure he got in trouble for that.
Hey,
But
he said it twice too.
I know, because he said he got in trouble for saying cock by saying cock again. I was like, Uber, no. But I think one low-key thing, guys, I know this is really small, but it was really cool. He was the first one to morning show the desk, right? Where he'd talk, and instead of the awkward they're still on me, he'd just turn over and talk to the people next to him, right? Which is great. I don't know if you've seen the morning show or any morning show for that matter, but that's what they do. And it looked cool. Okay. So I really liked Uber. I thought the signs were a little out of control, just the number of them and the distraction piece that it gave me when I was trying to listen to the casters talking. But I had to read all the signs to see what craziness was being put on them. And I think that's the first time we've seen it that crazy. Granted, it's Houston. Leave it to Houston to pull out the crazies. But I thought overall the arena was really hype. The arena was really packed. It was a big arena. I think that much hype for a team that, like Labasco said, is not doing well is huge. And I think it really did help Houston this week.
Yeah. I think the signs were a little out of control. There were a lot of people on Twitter mad about the signs. They were talking about Trump signs and all this stuff. And I was thinking to myself, well, I mean, Trump owns Texas. I mean, it makes sense that you would see Trump signs, whether you agree with it or not, And
It's just not the time or place, in my opinion.
Definitely not. But then my favorite one was Liz Richardson tweeted out, I saw the worst sign, and it was, let's build a wall and let Sabra pay for it. And I thought to myself, well, no, May should pay for that. She's the one with the walls, but I didn't tweet it back because I thought I'd just get hate for it instead of, basically what I was trying to say is bring it back to the game, guys. I don't care about your political beliefs or anything else. Ignore the signs. It's that easy.
They did make it difficult to ignore the signs.
It's just weird though. It's like you're going to an Overwatch League game and the sign you want so badly is a sign about political stuff. Really?
Right?
Yeah.
What?
Is this your audience?
They
I don't
are
think so.
literally just trolls. They weren't making the sign to push their political agendas. They were making the signs to piss people off. And it worked.
They're not on
People
Trump's support
fell
campaign.
into the trap. You know what I mean? And I just thought, making jokes about it would be funnier. But I will say the casters with those freaking signs behind them, I just wanted to like say, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry you have to deal with this because it started out with the one guy doing the neck thing, and then it
Which
just
was
turned
funny,
into
and
everybody
it, like,
fighting over it. Like, and it was just put the
I feel
casters
like
in a different spot.
Houston, right? I feel like Houston at their next homestand needs to realize that they need to limit these casting area, right? Like maybe allow 2 to 3 people back there and maybe not, I don't know. But either way, I mean, it didn't ruin the event by any stretch
No.
of the imagination. So I will comment on one thing that Loki was saying on about every 15 to 20 minutes, you get a 10-second like rewind. Super annoying. I don't know what that is. We
It's not
mentioned it
10,
last week.
it's like a second rewind because he's going to the point. He's going to the point. You know, it's
Yeah.
literally like just a second and a half, but it is weird.
It
Yeah.
happened only a couple times though, at least. It wasn't like prevalent.
It was
It
happening
happens to me,
me
like-
quite a bit, but we watch it on the Xbox. I don't know if that's a different, like that YouTube app is different or what, but viewership was down. We saw, of course, Monty tweeting about viewership and just like, Monty, stop it. But
The problem is we don't know if viewership is down. And like I mentioned when Bob and I were watching it, we also haven't seen any of the Chinese teams play, right? And so we're
That's
not
rough.
getting any of that viewership. And they're probably not even into watching the other teams play right now because their teams aren't even playing. So I think you have to take this with a grain of salt. I think that the viewership that we're seeing on YouTube is lower than people expected, but I think you look at the rewatches on YouTube and it's great.
yeah, there's
You
there's
look
a
at-
lot more like actually watching VODs later than there
Right,
was
you look at-
before.
You look at the amount of people that complained about switching to YouTube from Twitch that are boycotting YouTube and watching it on MLG. We don't know what those numbers are. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't think we can worry. I think one sign of greatness and the only sign of greatness for traditional sports is how many people show up to your event. And all of the events so far have been booming.
It's not like Atlanta had when they had their event for Call of Duty the other weekend, where there was like big empty spaces in the stadium. And I was shocked because I thought, Atlanta FaZe, they're a really popular team in the CDL. I thought that they would have a packed stadium for their event, and they didn't. I was a little bit surprised by that. So if you're comparing it to the other league that Activision Blizzard has, it's doing better in those home stands than they are. Like, and you've got to give them props for that. Viewership wise, they might be even, and you now have CDL actually beating some of the times Overwatch League. But I don't know if it's always going to be that way, especially too, like we're not in the same sort of place we used to be where it's about that live viewer. It doesn't matter anymore, especially when you consider that
Mhm.
it's on YouTube. So
Right.
people are watching it after the fact, and that's fine. Like you don't need that live viewership if you're still getting the views. Like they're probably getting more views overall, because how often would you see 500,000 views on a video, or even 100,000 views for that matter on a VOD on Twitch?
Never.
Exactly.
You
Not
saw,
even
like,
100,000.
Yeah, you saw like I think I remember looking at it last year. I think the biggest I saw was 17,000. And it's because
Exactly.
they were impossible to freaking find. Like we had to help so many listeners that wrote into us or tweeted at us on how to find them because they were just impossible to find. So if people missed it, they just missed it. And
I also feel like Overwatch League has done it better by not doing homestands the first year,
I
doing a
was-
couple the
you
second year,
just stole that right
Yeah.
out of my mouth. Yep.
and then killing it the third year. Because the Call of Duty, like, yes, it has a lot of people that are giving it a shot right now, right? But it doesn't have the fan base yet that is willing to congregate stadiums at a, event, right? Because it hasn't been going on long enough, I think, is the key takeaway there for me. I think Call of Duty is more accessible to a non Overwatch player, right? And like we can get into that with Dr. Disrespect's information, but like I think that it's just a lot of people are watching it because maybe they've played Call of Duty or they can follow it a little bit easier, but they're not necessarily as invested yet
I think
as they are into Overwatch League.
I think the Overwatch League did a really smart thing in starting out the league in one spot and building fans over the last 2 years, and now the fans are dying to see an event because they weren't able to travel before, and now there's places to travel all over. And there's so many different opportunities for people in different areas to go. And I think you're actually seeing the fruits of that labor now coming to fruition,
I think too, for like CDL specifically, like they had such established brands that are now just gone. These are brands that people had been associated for years. You think about Optic, you think about FaZe Clan, you think about these things, and now like Optic is not the same. Like Optic is basically the Chicago Huntsmen, but there's still Optic, and then you have Seattle. You have all these brand new teams that people are starting to latch onto. Like I think some teams are doing really good in CDL. Like I think the Huntsmen, I think that the Wintrust Arena where they're having their event, I think it's sold out now. Like the event is still not for another month and it's already sold out, including their like VIP stuff. Like that is an event and a team that has marketed itself really well, in part because the players like there are teams in CDL that are doing it, but I think you're right. Where Overwatch, like sure, you had Lunatic High and all these other sort of established teams, but they weren't the same as like Optic had been for Call of Duty, which had been around for years,
Gotcha.
forever.
Right.
So I think the fact that it was easier for fans to jump ship to like their hometown team than say somebody who's been an Optic fan their entire life and now Scump is no longer on Optic, he's on the Chicago Huntsmen.
Well,
Like
Right.
that's a little bit
It
easier
could also
to
be
do.
Also,
too, like
like, at the
they
same
were a
ti-
fan of Optic. Sorry, they were a fan of Optic their entire life, but then Optic goes to a different state, and they're in a state that also has a Call of Duty team, right? You know what I mean? Like I think Call of Duty just has a longer history.
Yeah.
Like Overwatch League did it right by establishing it from the beginning of the league, right? It wasn't like an Apex or in Contenders or anything, but once the Overwatch League started, they had home cities. So you didn't get attached necessarily too long to a different organization.
And those teams that you were attached to, like those rosters were kept together and brought into Overwatch League, even though now they've been torn asunder. Like it's
Right.
not as big of a deal because like loss makes it very easy to disassociate yourself with certain players. So I think that's one of the things that helped make it where it's like, okay, now I can get behind this brand where it's very NFL like, right? Like you get behind a brand, a team more so than players. And
Mhm.
sure, people are still behind players, but usually it kind of goes hand in hand in Overwatch League. So it's like they're still doing those things well, even if the game isn't in like the perfect state for anyone too.
Well,
Right.
and like Loki points out in the chat, like Call of Duty does get slow and campy. Like when I watched it, I found myself extremely bored because it's very slow and methodical. And if I was playing the game, that would be exciting. But with Overwatch League, it is balls to the wall at almost every second. Like that's something that's exciting. Whereas CDL, I don't know, man. Like
But I feel like it's exciting. It's exciting if
It's
you
easier
know
to
what you're watching.
understand. Yeah, it's easy. Like CDL's easier to understand, but I'm sorry, Overwatch League is much more exciting.
But you understand Overwatch League,
Yeah.
right? And people that are more casual understand shooters.
Well,
And they watch
with
Overwatch
that-
League as a shooter.
with that note, why don't you tell us what Dr. Disrespect said about Overwatch League recently?
Okay, well, can we just point out that Dr. Disrespect just started playing Overwatch and he placed in silver.
And it's a
Which is-
shit show like you would not believe it.
It's
Anytime you see him playing it, you
legit-
should watch it because it is
legit the-
gold.
funniest thing I've ever seen.
It is appointment television, basically.
It
is
is
appointment stream to
unbelievably
watch.
good. It is so
Yes.
good.
It's so funny. And watching him, like I was telling Bob, because he's sitting there playing McCree, and he can hit shots, right? But he legit spends half of his time searching for health packs because
Constantly.
He just doesn't know where they are, right? Yeah.
Well, no, he
No,
just
like,
shouldn't
he
do
knows
it. He
where
should
it
just
is.
get healed by his team, but he's
But it's like he
constantly
doesn't know there's a
running
heal-
across the map to get a health pack instead of
or
staying and putting
even-
damage in. It's
Even
so
he's in a
good.
doorway, and the health pack's just like right behind him, like right. So like, but instead of just continuing to put pressure and shoot people while your healer heals you, he like every reload almost, he's like turning around and getting the health pack and then coming back, turning around and getting the health pack. And I'm like, this is hilarious.
And then on
And-
top of that, Tim the Tap Man had a new account. He's like, "Hey, bro, I'll come carry you in silver." And Tim gets on and plays a couple games with him in silver. And Tim's like got this look on his face like, I don't know what's going on. He's like, "Sorry, dude, I'm not as good as I thought. I can't carry. I don't know what's going on." And then Tim does a VOD review at the end of his stream the other day, and VOD reviews, and he's like going through it. He's like, "Okay, so what happened here?" And he's like, "Well, wait, our diva could have gotten back in her mech, but she continued to fight Roadhog as Baby Diva for 15 seconds. How'd she even live for 15 seconds, first off? And then why did she get back in her mech? What is going? Am I taking crazy pills?"
What?
And I mean, he looked at all these different things. People just weren't even using their moves. Like the Moira legit didn't heal once in the last team fight that they did. Not
My
even
God.
a healing orb. Not once. She was just doing her little like lowest DPS in the game left click. And he's just like, "Well, how do you win down here?" And it's like, "Tim, welcome to silver. This is how people get stuck and they can never get out. So good luck." And he's gonna keep that account to play with Dr. Disrespect. So it'll be
Oh my God.
it'll be interesting to watch their journey from silver up.
I gotta like get in there and play with them and help carry Doc, because I feel like I can help get them out of there, because I've carried some games with certain people in that elo at one point or another. I'm not going to mention any names.
I
of who
can
that
carry-
person was.
Okay, so like I could carry if we have like a team of 4 and I'm tanking and I'm shot and I'm shot calling, then I can carry. But just jumping in as a DPS solo with one other DPS, I don't know that I can carry in silver.
That's a mistake, anyways. Like if you're trying to carry
Right.
somebody out, you don't play two people on the same role,
Right.
unless you're gods. And sorry, Tim. Sorry, Doc. You're not gods.
Yeah,
You're
I think Tim would have had a better chance playing tanks to carry him up, because his tanks, when he did the VOD review, his tanks literally didn't know what they were doing.
I feel like Tim would have had a better chance if Dr. Disrespect would have played Mercy and just damage boosted Tim. Like, that's how we're going to get Dr. Disrespect out of silver.
Oh, the
Get on your
shame.
Mercy,
The
damage
shame.
boost Tim, and get over it.
Well, no, but he's got to play DPS because that's the role he wants to play. So it's got to
Well,
be
you can-
Tim
but
doing that to Doc.
No.
But then he's stuck in DPS at silver.
Yeah, because
Oh,
I mean,
you're
Doc-
right, you're
Doc
you're
would have
I
better
forgot.
damage.
I thought
though.
you could.
Would have
I
better
thought you
damage.
could, like.
Exactly. You can't anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's rough.
It's real rough. That's why
Yeah.
they need a little extra
Okay, so
help, I think.
okay, well,
Okay,
now tell us
back
what he
to
said
Overwatch
about
League.
Owl. Yeah.
so he's been playing Overwatch, and then he did a stream of him watching the Overwatch League. And in very Dr. Disrespect fashion, was like, "Oh, this is cool. I understand everything that's happening in this stupid complex game. No, it's ridiculous. I don't understand one thing that's happening." And like very angry, saying that it's not viewer friendly, that a new person coming to Overwatch is not going to understand what's happening at all in that. And if we're looking for casual fans, that we need better something. He didn't even say what it was, but he said it was just way too much, which I feel like is a little bit based on just his experience in Overwatch, where he's just frustrated because he doesn't understand what all the moves do.
Which I could totally like relate with, because when I first started, do you remember the game where we literally were on Hanamura, first point, and we literally died 3 times to no one? We just walked through the choke in that right room, and there were 6 Symmetra turrets behind us.
Yes.
And I was like, all of a sudden I just can't move, and I hear this buzzing sound, and I just die. I don't even, there's not even any person around. Like, what keeps killing me? And it's
Yes,
like,
so we did it again.
yeah,
and
like
again
3
until we
times.
figured it out.
And then finally, turned around, like, oh, there's something on
no.
the ceiling. But I mean, like, Overwatch is, it is hard. It is very complicated. Tim called it the most mental shooter in the world. And I think that's probably true.
It's
Yeah.
really a lot like football, where it's the ultimate team sport. It's the ultimate team esport.
Mel
Like,
made
if
the
you're-
same comparison. Go ahead with yours, and then we'll let Mel say what she said.
Well, it's not just that though, too. Like, I do think there is some merit in what Doc is saying. Like, Dr. Disrespect is right. It is very hard for somebody new to Overwatch to watch Overwatch League and really get an understanding of what's going on, what's important, why is this team winning and why is this team losing. Like, it's not an easy game to capture everything that's happening, because things are happening off of screen. Like, until you really know the game, you don't understand why things are happening the way they are. You don't know what to look for. Like, when you're watching this screen, you don't know what you should be trying to focus on. Like,
Mhm.
it is it has a high barrier for entry. But once you get past that barrier for entry, it's actually really easy.
Yeah,
Right.
it
But
definitely
that
does get
initial
easier. It's like what all NFL football players say. The game starts to slow down in your second and third year. And it's because
Right.
you understand what's going on and you can process it quicker.
Well-
it's go ahead, Mel.
No, I was just going to say what I was telling Bobby earlier is that I understand this point, and I do understand that when you watch it, you can understand it. But my point is that when you watch Call of Duty, you understand, right? Like, but it gets kind of boring for me personally. When I watch golf, I understand, but it gets kind of boring for me. Lots of people like to watch golf, right? But when I watched football for the first time, I didn't know anything about football, and I was very confused. And the casters didn't explain every little detail to me when I started watching football. What happened is I watched it with friends, and I watched it. Okay, I watched it with Bob, and he explained to me what was happening, right? And then I started to understand, and then I started to grow to love it, and then I started to really be invested in it, right? But I think that it's unrealistic to think that I could bring my mom in to watch an Overwatch League game and she would understand what's happening. Just like if my mom had never seen football or my mom had never seen soccer or anything like that, that she could come in and watch a game and completely understand what's going on in the field.
We totally need to get your mom to watch one of the games and record it.
No, my dad even said, he's like, I tried to watch your podcast, but it's like you're speaking a different language. I was like, thanks, Dad, it's fine.
Well, that's the thing though. Like, okay, so there are certain games that are easier than others though to understand.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch a basketball game, it's very easy to see. You watch the team have a ball and then they put it in the hoop, they score points, and then the other team tries to do it as well. Like there are certain games that are easier to understand. I think that's the same way for esports too. Overwatch just happens to be a little bit more complicated. It is something though that can be very rewarding if you get past that barrier for entry.
Right.
That's where it's a matter of having the right people around and everything else. You have to have it in grind into people, and you have to have people that are dedicated enough that when they watch it, that they want their friends to understand. And like football, you're probably never going to understand all of the intricacies of Overwatch, even people who do it and talk about it for a living. Like, there are
I'm just gonna say that I understood football even better after I played Madden. So
yes.
think of how much better you could understand an actual esport after you play the game.
Oh,
Very,
without a
very
doubt.
true.
But you're still like, okay, goats. I'm going to use goats as an example. A lot of people didn't understand what made goats so intricate and such a compelling composition, and
Correct.
that's why people wanted it gone. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't mean there wasn't the intricacies there. Just sort of like how the single wing, like, is not really used as much anymore in football, but there was a lot of intricacy to it that people didn't really understand of why it worked, misdirection, and everything else. Like, there are parts of a game that evolve and change. You're just never going to be able to keep up on it anyways, even if you're somebody who watches it regularly. Like, the average fan
Right.
doesn't need to know when Azaria is supposed to use her projected barrier onto her Reinhardt, at what point, whatever. Like, those are things we don't need to know.
Right.
But what you do want to have is something that when you watch it, that you can at least understand, okay, they lost this fight because this person died here. And the reason that happened was because this guy did this. This
Right. And
McCree
I think
popped off.
I think people's complaint about it is that it's so chaotic, but at the same time, I also wonder because when I watched the clip of Dr. Disrespect on him talking about this, I wonder if he even had the casters on because he's talking to his stream. So I imagine that the casters that he's watching it on mute, maybe I don't know. Somebody could correct me
Maybe.
if I'm wrong there.
Maybe.
But if he's watching it on mute, I do feel like the casters give you enough, just like the casters in NFL tell me, like, well, that pass was a little behind. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. That pass was a little behind, but whatever. Mahomes can't fail. Like, so.
Well, and
I like that you gotta throw that in there.
And Deathblow from High Noon Podcast is in chat and says that it took his girlfriend about 2 or 3 nights of watching it with him to start to recognize what was going on. And she needed, like, the basic points she needed explained to her was like what the wind conditions were. She's not getting everything, but she's like those are the first points that she needed to know to enjoy it, and then she can ask questions throughout of why something happened or why something didn't.
It's something that, like, you have to, if you don't have somebody who understands, like, it definitely is a lot harder. Like, you do need somebody who's going to be able to help you. I do think too that we do need to be able to make it a little bit easier for people to understand it at the beginning, though, too.
I think
maybe a better tutorial, because like the tutorial really isn't that helpful.
Yeah, I mean, there could definitely be extra side content that Overwatch could put out and then have pinned to the top of their YouTube page. But honestly, after going to homestand events last year, I mean, that is your best way. You're getting so many different people together to just talk about the game. And I mean, you're talking with the dude while you're waiting in line to get a freaking beer. You're like, yeah, but I don't know if Carpe was doing this here or this here. I mean, it's literally you're just having conversations that are increasing both your and the other person's knowledge of the game. And I think that's what happens in football stadiums and what happens in baseball stadiums and what happens. I mean, I think it's the coolest thing ever that we're actually doing home stands.
Agreed. Do you think that after 3 years of football being out, that the casters came on and explained every single thing that was about to happen? Like, do you think that they came on and explained what offense was after 3 years of football? Like, no. But my point is that find a community to help you get into it. And the only way that this homestand model is going to be successful is not from grabbing random people to watch it live on Twitch or YouTube. It's going to be from having communities of people that engage together that help each other figure out what's happening, right? Like, get the basics. I mean, they could not have typos on, the like S chord to the end. But other than that, and one other thing, they could leave it up a little bit longer because I even know what it says and I have a hard time reading the entire thing before it disappears, right? Like they put it up for like 3 seconds, like escort what it is. They could have it a little bit better, but
Yeah,
that's
true,
all.
true. But we do need to talk about some games, so let's move on real quick. Dallas Fuel lowers homestand ticket prices. Want to tell us what this is all about, Mel?
Yeah, so they lowered their homestand ticket prices by 50%. And I guess the question I want to pose to you guys is, do you think that because Dallas has 5 homestands, that the turnout could start to decline from their first homestand, right? Because the first homestand is really hype, right? It's like opening week, it's like your first homestand of the year. And then you've got 4 more, and they're kind of spread out, like not in an every other week type of format or anything like that. And they're not consistent. Like you buy season tickets for, football or baseball, and you've got them like all year. But because they're not happening all the time, but they're happening more frequently, do you think that that affects the people that will be willing to go?
I feel like you have to be more willing to go now with the fact that the ticket prices have dropped. Like if you're somebody
Well,
who is
yeah.
on the fence, like you're now for sure going, right? Like the ticket is half the price. That's more money you can spend on other things, hotel, whatever it might be. We know a lot of people travel to these events. Like so many people are out of towners who are coming to all of these events. I think that's one of the impressive things from all of the homestands so far is how many people seem to not actually be local to the area. So you're allowing those people who maybe are, I mean, let's face it, most fans are in college or younger. The price of the ticket before, sure, it wasn't crazy, but now it's like I can get a really good seat and go.
Right.
I
It was 65 and now it's 39.
I
Just so you guys
feel
know.
like this is a push to make sure the big ones are sold out because the ones that are going to be in the Allen Fieldhouse are 4,500 seats. And they want to have the fans in the seats. And to be honest, the ticket price isn't what makes you the money, it's the beer.
And they're not at a point either though where like those ticket prices are eventually going to go back up. Like I think at this
Right.
point you want to sell out. You want people to see a full. You don't want the Atlanta Phase homestand where you have a ton of empty seats and you're like, what the hell event is this? Why really this is the best that Atlanta could show? Like
Well,
you
and then
want
everybody
it.
Well,
that
to be
goes to
fair,
that event.
Atlanta was completely sold out. It's
No,
just
he was talking
people.
about the Call
Atlanta
of Duty
Fleet,
one.
Call of Duty. I'm
Oh,
talking
okay,
Call of
okay,
Duty.
okay.
Right.
I was like, just like the homestand last year in Atlanta, they didn't have Atlanta play last, and so it was literally an empty stadium for the last match each of the 2 days.
That
Right.
was their mistake too. That was
Yep.
Yeah.
not a good plan.
But
Anyway,
but I do think that Dallas at this point, you're trying to entice fans, right? So if you bring fans in to potentially their first homestand with a half full stadium, they're less likely to buy tickets for the next homestand, right? Because it's probably not going to be the experience that they were looking for. But I think it's a good call on Dallas Fuel's part to lower these ticket prices. I just know that, the Reddit people are going to start, talking about Dallas caving into anything and everything. I don't know.
Reddit's
I
gonna
don't
be Reddit about
Yeah.
whatever. Anyway, I'm not concerned about what Reddit thinks for this because I think if Dallas feels like it's a good plan, do it. I don't think that the ticket numbers are going to make or break the Dallas Fuel or Envy as a whole. So I don't think it really matters. Like I think it's more about making sure that they pack their stadium and making sure that they make this event as good as possible and have that atmosphere that they want. And like you said, Bob, like these are the bigger events. There's more seats to fill. Like 2,500, you should be able to fill 2,500 at the very least. But if you can fill 4,500 hell yeah, let's see it happen. You know, like what was it, 8,000? I think was their homestand in the last season, or roughly around there.
It was Allen. It was 4,500.
It was so it was 4,500,
which was a lot of people, dude. It was a lot of people.
It was awesome.
It
felt like 8,000. That's the thing.
It was the only thing. It was the biggest thing I'd been to besides season 1 grand finals. Like, it was huge.
Grand finals are just on a different level, anyways.
Definitely. But I think, coming from a fan, I think Hastro's just a good dude, and he just wants everybody to be able to come. And I truly feel that. I mean, the dude has been knocked for keeping players that are has-beens across all of Envy. And I mean, he is just a good dude, man. So
I think you're a nut. I think he's probably a fine dude, and he's probably a very good dude, but he's also number one a businessman, and he knows how to make a business work. And by lowering the ticket prices, you're making the business work. You're looking towards the future. But sure, he might be a great person.
I'm going to go with he's a patron saint. But, we could agree to
disagree. Have you met Hastro yet?
Yes. It was a couple different times, and got to talk to him for a while at the Dallas homestand. And I mean, he was there with his newborn baby, and he's just a cool dude, man. He just really is a cool dude.
It's a good staff. They definitely have a good staff at NV. Jay Hairston's a great guy. There's a lot of really good people. Jane is awesome, who's I think in more of like a content role there now.
Yeah.
But they've got a lot of good. Arrow's a nice guy. I got to talk to Arrow a little bit at BlizzCon this year, and a few others from the Dallas Fuel organization. So I think that it's a good move for the business, and it's a good move for the people. Like it's a win-win. There's no loss for the fans or for the organization.
So here on a side note, I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast, but not last BlizzCon, but the BlizzCon before. I went to the Toronto Defiant release party. It was at BlizzCon in the Marriott.
I
think that's the first night that I met you.
Yes.
So I was outside vaping and talking to this guy who I would later find out was the GM of the San Francisco Shock. But I was just shooting the shit with him about Overwatch. And he's super cool guy. And Hastro comes walking out and starts like going back and forth with him. And I'm like, how does this guy know Hastro? And I was like, Hastro, you got to come on the podcast. I want to have you on for an interview. And he goes, nah, I don't think so, man. I was like, dude, but I am a Fuel fan. I pull up my lanyard, and I had switched out my BlizzCon lanyard with the Dallas Fuel one. And he goes, you probably have 12 lanyards in your pocket. You saw me coming, and then just pulled out that one. And I said, well, if that's the case, I'm fucking Superman. And then I unbuttoned my freaking dress shirt that I had on, and it was a Dallas Fuel t-shirt. And I showed him, he goes, that might be the coolest thing I've ever seen. Dude, I might come. Get in contact with me. But then I was never able to get in contact with him. But still, though, like, it was hilarious because he was like, okay, well, I can't deny that. You're wearing the undershirt. There's no way you changed the time. But, like, a guy like that gets attacked by a lot of people, and a lot of people wanting to, leech onto him. So, like, that type of that type of interaction probably happens to him a lot. And so I just thought it was cool that I was able to prove my true fandom right there.
Blow him away with it, yeah.
And he was probably like, why is this dude undoing his shirt? I don't understand.
Get
me out of here.
Oh my God.
Okay,
right. I'm going to run through the last two news things so we can get onto the games.
Let's do it.
So Munchkin was released from Boston, which, okay. I didn't even realize he was on Boston. I forgot.
Yeah, dude, Munchkin's had a rough career. Just
It's
hasn't
so
ever
weird.
worked out.
I mean, I think he's a good player. I just don't
Yeah.
think.
No, he's a good player.
Yeah, but okay.
Certain
Whatever.
heroes, yeah, like he is good. Like he's a good tracer. He's got a good couple heroes in his pool. We haven't seen him in forever,
Yeah,
so we can't
Tracer's
really
all
say how
I
good he
remember.
really is.
I
But
mean,
his
let's be
Tracer was
real.
lackluster in season 1, though.
Let's be real. Boston's just cutting, people because they don't want to pay them. It's fine. But Asia-based teams are now relocating to LA, which the one thing I wanted to comment on this was that I do feel like we are moving to maybe get to see some of these Asian teams play because they're relocating to LA. So hopefully we will get some matches where we could see some of the Chinese-based teams and get an idea of where they're at.
That'd be nice, especially
Right?
too, because like if you play fantasy Overwatch, like you've
Mhm.
probably got half your team right now that's not playing.
Yeah, it's
Like,
No, I
kinda
had to
rough.
drop people from my team because I couldn't even field the full team
I
over 2 weeks.
I
Yep, I'm
refuse to
doing
drop
the same.
players.
I won both of my draft buff matchups this last week, or this last two weeks, because it runs on a 2-week schedule. I won them both, only playing 3 out of 6 starters.
Well, because I
It's
think
wild.
everybody else is in the same situation,
Yeah.
right?
Not everybody is. Some people have decided to go for the wins early on. But
Ramses.
regardless of that, though, Ramses, of course. Regardless of that, though, like it still sucks not being able to see some of these talented players that we're kind of waiting to see for the first time. For some of them, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Dang, Diem, and Fleta on Shanghai. Like, there's so many teams that we want to see what they're going to do with new players. Like, it sucks that we don't get a chance to see them. Chengdu still, of course, is Chengdu. So you want to see what they're going to bring to the
what they're
table.
gonna do.
Like there's just
Well,
so
yeah,
much.
Chengdu I want to see so bad. But
Coldest. Oh my gosh, yeah.
at the same time, what do you think this has done for the Chinese-based teams, right? Because one, they've been dealing with a crisis in China, right? So they're obviously a little distracted. But two, they also have gotten the opportunity to see what everybody else is good at in this current meta, and potentially with hero pools coming out, see even what they're good at in different metas. And then three, they've just gotten a lot more time to practice. Now, that time to practice is also time that they've been practicing a meta that is no longer viable, but it's still helping them work on coordination and getting things together, right? Like Houston's played 6 games, and some of these teams haven't even played one.
A
Now-
lot of them.
Yeah. So if Houston can get it together after 6 games, do we think that they will come in stronger because of this or at a disadvantage because they haven't been playing, you know?
You that question was weird because it sounded like you were phrasing it for Houston, but you're phrasing it for the Chinese teams.
Yeah.
Well, just all those Western teams, not just the Chinese. It's also Seoul, like Seoul's in that as well. It's
I think Seoul's played once though, right? We've seen
No.
Soul once.
No. Seoul hasn't
no,
played
I'd
at all
love
either.
to see Prophet. I haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting.
You're right.
But that's the thing. So it's like, is it an advantage or a disadvantage? We won't know until the games are played. I would
Right.
think that it's not an advantage because nothing can replace actual stage game time.
Nothing.
So
Nothing. Stop
there's
telling me
re-
about scrims. Stop telling me about tier 2. Nothing can replace stage Overwatch League.
But
I mean,
man, what if
apparently
Zephyr?
Blase was really good in scrims. So I'm just saying.
Sometimes it
He's
translates.
really
It doesn't
freaking good at
always.
Doomfist, but we'll get to that in a second.
But yeah, I'm glad they're coming back. I'm glad they're coming here. I'm sad about the coronavirus. I hope it's not affecting any of their families, but I am glad to see that we are making moves to get them back into the league.
Yep. And they're coming back here right in time for the coronavirus to come to our neck of the woods. And now we're going to have to deal with it. But the good news for the Overwatch League is the coronavirus is only killing old people. So
That is
the
so
young
not
people,
true, Bob.
it is actually,
careful.
no, it is actually, yeah, I've been following it pretty hard. It is actually, no,
it
it's
has only
it's
killed
not
old
like
people.
the Spanish flu who killed people in the prime of their life. It's killing mostly old people. Children are surviving almost at 100% survival rate. So
Okay, there was also
that
a
is good
50-year-old.
news. That is good
There
news.
was also a 50-year-old that died in
You think
Washington.
She
50's
was high
old.
risk though too.
She
They
was. She was
labeled her
also
high
very
risk,
sick.
so.
And so I do agree that it's not something to be as worried about. I mean, I'm getting ready to go to 2 very large work conferences in California and Nebraska.
It
So
really
like
has me worried.
I'm not as concerned for me, but I would say if you're in poor health or you are creeping on the older side,
Like Boomer Bob.
definitely be more careful. Because yeah. I mean, Bob could die.
But I mean,
100%.
it's like, and I say that in all seriousness, like, if you get a pandemic like this, the only thing we have to be happy for is it's killing people that have lived through the prime of their life. And that's all you could hope for as a society. And we're not going to talk about this anymore because it's getting way too deep. But let's move on to games. So, yeah, there were some stinkers. Start off day 1, NYXL destroys Mayhem 3-0. The Reign destroy the Toronto Defiant 3-0, and then the Spitfire barely win against the Outlaws. Is this really how we would have predicted? Like, I would have thought Defiant would have put up a better showing. I thought Mayhem looked like they could actually go pretty good against NYXL, but NYXL pulls a freaking swap, screws up a bunch of people's fantasy, and they're like, no, who are you? No SBB. Let's play Nene and
To be honest, I
Libero.
think
Libero, yeah.
NYXL brought out their best lineup.
I think
For the current meta, they brought out their best lineup.
I think
Now,
they definitely did, yeah. But who,
I-
like, you just wouldn't have expected that after watching them over their first 4 games.
I think we also saw a lot of lineup switches this week, particularly because hero pools are coming out next week. So I think you're putting the people that you want to play in specific metas or specific heroes into the game just to get some stage time before hero pools come out, because you don't want to go into week 1 of hero pools with 0 stage time and not even knowing whether these people are going to perform on stage or not.
Well,
But-
in the case of NYXL and the Mayhem, you could say that they didn't respect anybody before now, and now's why they're putting in Nene and Libero, and they were just wanting to get SBB some, wiping the dust off, and then who are you, some, time on stage to start out when his May was very lackluster throughout his entire start.
It was confusing because, Who Are You has some great heroes in his pool. May's just not really one of them. He looked okay at times on the May, though, too. It's not like his May was completely abysmal, the worst in the league or anything. But yeah, it makes more sense to have Libero on it. It just does.
Right.
Libero plays everything to at least a good level.
And he has a sick May.
Right.
Exactly. So it didn't make any sense. I mean, maybe it was they didn't respect any of the other teams, but then at the same time, when they end up getting close in a series, then why didn't they bring Libero and Nene in? Those are questions we'll probably never have answered. But we do see the potential. Florida has played a lot of teams tough. So the fact that they were able to just 3-0 them like that, and it wasn't there were some 3-0s.
It wasn't a close 3-0. Yeah,
Right.
It was a stomping.
It was just over. And it was okay, this is the New York Excelsior we've been waiting for. We kind of
Right.
expected this sooner in this season. So I don't think you put too much onto it, especially now, because who knows who they're going to end up playing in the next week.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Rain Defiant, because I really thought that this was going to be a bigger game, but the Rain really came back. It just goes to show Selfless Brad is a true coach and might be one of the oldest coaches in the league. I don't know that that matters, but I think there's a lot of early 20-something coaches in the league that maybe players see as more of a peer than a, superior. What am I thinking of? Age gives you,
Wisdom.
Seniority.
well, just elder. Like
I
they
don't
see
think
him more as a
age-
peer,
I-
as an elder, because like they came in coached to death for Toronto Defiant and just made him look silly. Used the Tor because they knew it would help with the Genji or Tracer in the back line. Like, I mean, just completely gameplay informed.
I think if you're going to talk about Reigns coaching, though, you have to talk about both of Atlanta Reigns games.
We'll
because
talk
they
about
came
that
out-
next. We'll talk about that next.
No, you can't separate them and just talk about how wonderful this game was, because you put Reign in against Defiant and they looked unbelievable. But you put them in then against Eternal and they looked like they didn't know right from left. So, yes, maybe their coaching was wonderful, but did they just coach for Defiant? Or why did they pull out this specific strategy against Defiant, which was obviously a counter strategy to Defiant's gameplay?
To Defiance dive. Like they're stronger on dive. I think Eternal, like I just think it's hard to gameplay against Exy. Like it's
He's
just
good.
fucking hard.
I mean, agreed, but you could say the same thing about Carpe, and I think didn't Defiant beat
No,
come
they lost.
close
It was
to
3-2.
beating they
I
came
think it was, or
close to
3-1.
beating Philly, right?
It was close.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
So-
came close after being just trounced for 2 maps. They won the next 2 playing dive and kind of throwing Philly off, but then Philly came back in Philly fashion and won on control.
I think Atlanta Reign has not played yet. They came out and they debuted strong because they had game planned against Defiant. I think when
They had Baby Bay twerking on stage, like
correct, but I think when they were put into the current meta and facing a good team, you could also argue that Defiant has gone down, right? Like Defiant didn't put up a fight against Reign and they barely put up a fight against Outlaws, right? So
Well,
like
you could
where's
also
Defiant in this?
you could also argue Hawk was a little off his game the second day because he didn't play the first day.
I don't think Hawk was the issue. Like watching that game multiple times, like Hawk didn't
I
seem.
already heard you fanboy on Hawk.
Well, regardless of my fanboying, that taking that out of the equation, like the biggest thing for me was the difference in McCree. Like Baby Bay would have one good flank where he would do great and he would win a fight for you here and there, but he wasn't having the same impact that Exy was having the entire game.
Well,
And it was a clash of styles. To me, it felt more like this was a clash of styles than it was, this team wasn't prepared enough. I think that the way that Paris plays, it doesn't go well for how Atlanta plays.
Something Mel pointed out during the game that she noticed is that during the Reign Eternal game is that like Hawk wasn't on Baby Bay's butt, but I forget who Eternal's diva is.
Hanbin.
Yeah. Hanbin was on XC like XC was Reinhardt. Like it was literally his Reinhardt.
Every time XC got jumped, Hanbin was there. Every time Baby Bay got jumped, he was dead. And the diva was there 0.5 seconds too late.
But this also goes again to the different styles because where was Exy playing compared to where Baby Bay was playing? Exy was playing with the tanks. Baby Bay was flanking. Like that's, the fact that Hawk's even able to almost get there and say if Baby Bay is actually a pretty good thing, especially when you consider too, you're now pulling Hawk away from where the May's going to throw the May ult, right?
And
Yet,
Hawk did eat a lot of ults. That was one
exactly.
thing I definitely saw in his gameplay that was really good.
But I think it's play styles, right? Because I think just like the New York of season 1, where their play style was we are going to put all of our resources into Jonak, who is our Zenyatta, right?
Mhm.
Whereas most other teams, they could have had a higher level, probably not Jonak level, but a higher level Zenyatta, but they didn't because their team put all of their resources into their Rhine or their Winston, right? And so I think it's just a play style difference that
Yeah.
I just noticed that XZ was, yes, getting covered more by the diva, but XZ was sometimes flanking and still getting protected by his diva. The communication seemed to be better there, in where the diva knew that they should come help XZ so that XZ could stay alive. Whereas Baby Bay and the whole Atlanta Reign had kind of all done their own part, and then
Which
the
could just
communication
be
just wasn't there.
Which could just be Hawk just being new with the team. And like many people didn't think Pokpo would be playing. I tried to tell everybody Pokpo would be playing regardless, but so many people did not believe me. They thought Hawk would be, with his old teammate. And so
And Gator, yeah.
yeah, and so like I don't know, like there's a lot that goes into it, but a lot of it could just be Hawk not being ready to be with the team because Hawk was the only new guy in the 6-person lineup there. So it could be a lot of just nerves too. Like there's a lot of different things you can look in. You can look into that, but maybe Rain is just a better double shield team.
As far as their play
too.
style, right? Like I think that's the thing. It's like finding your play style, and maybe that was something they wanted to test. Maybe that was something they needed to see. Was okay. Where are our problems when we play Reinhardt Diva? And I think you definitely saw a lot of what the problems were. And one thing for sure that that XZ and Hanbin are going to have over Hawk and Baby Bay is synergy, because XZ and Hanbin have been together for how long?
Right.
There's definitely a lot more for that on the side of Paris that goes into that than what you have with Baby Bay and Hawk. Now, does that mean that that's always going to be the case though for these teams? I think the one good thing though is there's so much potential in Atlanta that they can catch up to the synergy that you have already in place with that DPS and off tank. So I think for like if you're looking at Atlanta, like this is a very Atlanta week 1 where they play great in one game and then they play terrible in another. And even though they played terrible, they were still pretty close in all their maps. I think
Right.
other than the control, they were at least in everything. They weren't like just stomped. I think that's
It wasn't
one
like
good thing.
NYXL mayhem, right?
Yes, exactly.
Where
Part of
No,
me
I agree.
worries that Atlanta made a partied too hard that first night.
That's possible too.
It's very possible.
I mean, it's very
And
possible.
Nobody mentions that, but I mean, the Overwatch League events, these are young guys, and it's very important to keep their partying to after the weekend's events. Yeah. And I think that's like something that players might learn. And I'm not saying that this happened. I have no idea. I'm just wondering,
Maybe some players, you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, Hawk's an 18-year-old kid. Like,
I mean, are people really sick? I'm just saying. I'm kidding. I think they are. I was just saying they could be hungover too, and it's fine. Let's move on.
People still say that Jordan didn't have the flu, so who knows?
I mean,
but
it's all up in the air.
I don't know. I think it looks pretty good for the Rain. Everybody was kind of down on him after losing to Eternal. I think take it with a grain of salt. We've still got a lot of time. There's a lot of talent there and a lot of pizzazz, and I think we might see them. So, Mel, let's talk about the Spitfire.
Can we just skip to the Outlaws second game? No, I'm just kidding. I do want to say
Oh no, hold on. First off, the first thing I want to talk about before we talk about the Outlaws is I want to talk about Jerry. And everybody can shut up about Jerry now. Okay, like he's cute, yes, but no, he was not amazing. He played the
Jerry
Outlaws.
didn't even play until
against-
Jerry's on the Uprising.
Yeah, I know.
We're not
That was
even
last
at that game yet.
I
We're not even at that
I
game.
literally just moved us to that game because the Fusion destroyed the Uprising. And
Did you just skip Outlaws Spitfire?
No, I was going to talk about the Outlaws duel. So I was going to talk about both of their games. I just wanted to get the Uprising out first, and then
So
basically
you
we
just
just
teased me?
yeah, we just have to talk about the Outlaws after. But Jerry, thank gosh we got brought back down to earth. Jerry, no. He was not that good. Not that good.
I
He was
mean-
going up against Blase, like anybody would look good against Blase's
To be
McCree.
fair, Jerry went up against Fusion. Okay, so I'm pretty sure at this point in time, Fusion could make anybody look like a pleb.
Yeah, Carpe
Right, like-
said, "Welcome to the league, son."
Right, Carpe and Sato and everybody on the Fusion.
Don't
is just
say
like,
Sato
no,
like
no.
Sato's been this awesome player forever. I mean, he just now looks like an Overwatch League player.
Yes, this season though, which is when Jerry has
But
played him.
we will say Fusion came out with the B roster, right? Fusion came out with EQO, who he's never had a good May, and they still made him play May. I would have loved to have seen him style on his freaking McCree, or not McCree, Genji, or even Soldier. That would have been hilarious.
Again, I think
Soldier
that's
might
getting
be
him
in
play
next
time.
week, though. Oh, dang it.
I
I'm
think
jumping
that's
ahead.
getting him playtime against a team they know they're going to beat. A team that they know they can beat with
Yep.
pretty much anybody on their roster,
And they
right?
put in
A team that
Fury.
went to game 7 with the
Yeah.
Outlaws, Blase
And
on McCree.
Fusion.
You can beat them.
Fusion screwed my daily fantasy. I played Ivy and Poco. And
Yeah,
they
that
just
sucks.
like come out there like, nah, we're just gonna play this against this pathetic little Uprising. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they just styled on
Labasco, I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I've been enjoying this. I just want to say that. I thought it was a funny, but no, the game of Philly, it's just like you knew what was going to happen. Like you just did. I think Philly sort of just proved it where they just played who they wanted to. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing either. Like you want to get those players time. I think Mel's right with that. And it's not like, okay, EQO maybe not as good as Ivy on the May, but it's not like Ivy's been great on the May either. Like if you were to say one of the weakest parts, like how many times have you seen Ivy get a May alt eaten that you're like, why did you do that? Like that
I don't know.
happened.
Our friend Death Blow from High Noon made an entire video about how Ivy was the key to Fusion's success. So I mean, I think Ivy's been really good.
It's not that he's been bad. I'm saying his alts are bad. Like you can still
Yeah.
play well. Like that's the thing about May, right? Like you don't like your alt is a game-winning fight, but May itself is just so good that you can win the fight just with May.
I think
Like,
there's a lot
walls. I
to
think
May.
walls are the most important part of May because, like, her ult definitely zones,
No,
but I mean,
Her
like,
ult can be
her
a team
wall is the
winner.
biggest. Like, yeah, it can be, but I'm saying her wall placement on cooldown is your biggest May play. Is what makes a May or what doesn't make a May.
Your ability
Correct.
to split off players and freeze them and everything.
Yep.
right.
If you're very good May, it makes the difference. Yes. But there's still so many things. Like clearly there's more than just that made it work for the Philadelphia Fusion.
Mhm.
I mean, think about it. There's maps that Carpe had to win himself for this team in other games. So like Ivy's May great, but it's not why they're as good as they are. They have other components that make them the team that they are. And you can play these other parts that are probably going to see playing time here coming up very soon because of how hero pools are going to go. Get them on stage. It's an opponent where if you have a bad game in your control point, you'll know, okay, we've got to bring back in our big boy roster. They didn't
Right.
have to. So
just
why would
wanna
they
see,
do that?
I just want to see
I think they
EQO
kept their
Genji
big
so
boy
bad.
roster. Listen, they had Alarm and Funny Astro in there, and I think those are their keys to success. I think
I
Sato
think you're
looks
exactly
so
right.
good because Alarm keeps him alive.
Yep,
I
it's
think
like
Funny
me
Astro
playing with
makes
Jay Lee.
plays.
It's he just
Right,
makes me look
versus you
good.
playing with me, right? Where I'm like, sorry, I'm dead again.
There are
Uh,
times in games where I'm like, how is Sato not dead?
right, exactly. And that's what Alarm does, which allows Sato to play aggressive and play
Yeah.
confidently aggressive, right? I think you see the opposite in tanks that don't trust their supports. Like they play aggressive, but then they pull back too quickly. So their aggression is horrible because they didn't finish it off, but they weren't going to live either way, right? So, like, I think that Alarm and Funny Astro have empowered this team to know that they can do whatever the hell they want and they'll figure it out, right? And if not, Carpe will come back and kill everybody anyways. So,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
who cares? Like, I think that that is the key to Fusion success. So I don't think they brought in their B team. Okay. I think they brought in their B team for this meta, but I think they brought him in because they were playing the Uprising. I don't know that Jerry is really as awful as Bob thinks he is, but
I didn't
I
say it
think
was
that
awful. I just said he wasn't Jerry, Jerry, Jerry.
okay, you know what? After a whole season of not seeing headshots, I think people will cheer for anybody that clicks ahead.
Well, and I mean,
So
he was whooping on the Outlaws, so it's
yeah,
probably
I
a big
wasn't
thing.
chanting Jerry at all, unless
right.
it was
Mel,
forwarded by an F.
I'll give you the floor. Why don't you take us into what happened this weekend for the Houston Outlaws?
Oh, what happened? So, Houston decided finally that they were going to play players on characters that they were good at. And I think that's the name of the game here, right? Like, hey, we put in Linkser finally on Hitscan because Linkser's our Hitscan player. And that was weird that he wasn't on Hitscan before. Then they subbed in Blase. And I was like, you mother effers, I am going to murder you. Why did you do that? But Blase came out of McCree. And he made me a believer in Blase again because I was not McCree on Doomfist.
Doomfist.
I'm sorry. I was very hyper focused on McCree. Him being on McCree and that learning history is just really awful.
Yeah,
But
you just don't want to see them.
I don't want to see him on McCree. But they brought him out and they put him on Doomfist. And I think the best thing about this is that as a diehard Houston Outlaws fan, I really hated Blase. And they really made me love him again. Not again, because I never loved him before. But they made me love him, okay? Because his Doomfist was killer. Now, the only thing that I could say is, please, Houston, Dante is just legit better at May and Sombra and whatever else. Hydration is playing. Hydration is not bad, and Hydration did get better in the second. I think in the second match against Defiant, Hydration
He played well, yeah.
showed that he has that skill. I think Hydration's walls are semi better than Dante's, but I think Dante overall is a better, more flexible player onto what we wanted in this meta.
Really? Hydration's walls always have a gap the size of Texas that the enemy Ryan could just jiggle back through.
Hydration's defensive.
No, Dante's way better at May.
Hydration's defensive walls were much better. There was a number of times that Hydration saved Muma because of his wall. Like so many times where Muma got walled off and Hydration was able to save him with his wall. Now, I didn't see that from Dante, but granted, when Dante was in, they were playing a lot of Sombra Doomfist. So
Hydration does do a lot of cool things where when the Ryan gets walled, he walls right behind the other wall, pushing him and a teammate or two up to help the Ryan, which is pretty
Smart.
next level. Yeah. Okay.
Hydration's a smart player.
I'll give that to you.
Yeah. Hydration is a player that, like, because of how smart he is, you want to see him out there because he's going to do things that you're not thinking of doing. I think that's a good way to look at Hydration. He also does have a pretty wide hero pool. So, like, if you
He
need
does.
like a crazy switch, he can do
But
it.
so does
And he
Dante.
also has the best
True.
poker face in Owl.
That is also
I mean, you
100%
will,
fact.
I guarantee
he
you will
legit just-
never get one emotional reaction out of that man ever.
See, that's not an Outlaws thing. So we don't want that. We don't want the blandness. We would like a little bit more excitement from our players. Thank you very much.
He's the team straight man. Like, you have to have one. Hydration's your team strght man.
You're
Right,
saying
'cause we
he's
have
the
a gay
only
man,
one that's
we
not
have
gay?
a gay man, and so we have to have a straight man. Is that what we're saying here?
I didn't even think about that. Oh, I was just thinking everybody's quirky, and then you need your one straight. man.
Oh, man.
yeah, good.
There were
You
a
know,
whole-
comedy, that
there,
whole thing.
there were a whole bunch of sides that were like, we're here, we're queer, and we're for Muma. I was like, damn right you are.
Muma's awesome.
You go, you.
Muma's awesome, but we cannot overlook Muma's
No,
struggles.
Muma's been sucking. Let's just
Okay,
put that.
no, no,
On
no.
Reinhardt. On
You
Reinhardt.
stop. You
Yeah,
stop.
but he's
You
always been such a
stop.
good Reinhardt, though.
You stop. Let me finish.
Like, he was one of the best Ryans before Overwatch League. Everybody forgets that, but he was one of the OG badass Ryans. All right, sorry, Mel, go.
Yes, Muma's Rhine has left a lot to be desired, as Loki says. But what I will say is I think that Muma was trying to take on the world because for some reason Blasé was on McCree and we insisted on playing the meta with Blasé on McCree. And Muma tried to do too much. And when Muma tries to do too much, Muma fails. And I think he's got a new off tank that doesn't understand Muma trying to do too much. Like those things that don't come out in scrims that come out in game day could be better if the tank and off tank had better synergy.
You're
And
talking
they
about
don't.
Meko. Meko, poor guy, just always looks like, I don't know what's going on. Everybody's talking English. I don't understand. I don't know. I'm just going to do this. Okay.
No, Meko and Jexay actually have very good English.
Do they? Do they?
They do.
Okay, cool.
And it's improving.
Not ARC English.
It
but
was, oh yeah, it was kind of like when we were in Atlanta and I was interviewing Carpe and I asked the question and then put the mic over to who I thought was the translator, and Carpe
went like this.
takes his finger and moves the mic over to him, and I was like, oh, sorry, man, sorry.
Yeah. And he
Like-
spoke perfect English.
Oh,
in the
dude,
mic.
yeah.
It
And,
was
and,
like-
His English is really good.
yeah,
my
really
God,
good. And Carpe
amazing
was
good.
actually way friendlier than I ever would have expected seeing him on stage. He looks like a dick, but
Yeah,
like
he definitely has an RBF.
dude,
where
yeah,
it's just like
yeah,
okay.
but he was he was so he was really into the interview. He was cool
That's
as
awesome.
hell. Yeah, he was cool as the other
Yeah.
side of the pillow.
You know what? That made me think of is it made me think of a baseball player who plays in Chicago, Yu Darvish, where it's because we always hear him talk in his native tongue
Mhm.
that people don't realize that he can speak English pretty well. Like Yu Darvish, I think it was last year, started speaking English. Like he used to use a translator because he didn't want things to be misconstrued.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
I
I
didn't
think-
want it to be.
And like anytime you see Carpe in like the interviews, he's not speaking English. And I
Yep.
think
Right.
maybe that's why he did that. But maybe, he finally got to a point where he's like, you know what? I can speak English. I'm going to start doing it. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I
at
mean-
like a more informal press conference, right?
Maybe
so
that's
it
why,
was
too.
like he was just like, why are you
like,
putting it with him?
You won't see him move it over, but you will like if you want to check out on our youtube.com/owl recap, like when it's our most popular video of all time. So it's right there on
That's
the
awesome.
front page, but it's a bunch of different players, but Carpe's in there speaking English, and like I just didn't know. So I
Yeah.
guess I didn't know Meko did, but I just look at Meko and he always looks like so confused, like, what am I doing
I think-
here?
that's kind of just Meko, though. He kind of always looks a
Right.
little confused.
I feel like
think
he looked that same way on NYXL when he was performing very well. But I listened to like Flame talk on Jake's new podcast,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, where they brought him in to talk about the top tier teams, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. But yeah, whatever, we'll go there. And he said something like, they asked him, what did Mecco bring to the Houston Outlaws? And he goes, I think the NYXL has a very different culture than the Houston Outlaws had. And I was like, yeah, probably.
Probably.
And he's like, the one thing that Mecco really brought was just this very open dialogue of critique on like, hey, you did this wrong. Next time, do this better. You know what I mean? Or like it was just very open, constructive criticism, right? Whereas I think
That should be on every team.
sometimes I agree, but I think sometimes the player between player open critique
It's
is
harder.
minimized.
Yeah, peer-to-peer critique.
Right, because they're not as comfortable and confident.
Especially from a DPS player to a tank, or a DPS player to a support, or
Right, where they
any
get
of those.
defensive, or like, well, if you had done this, and it is a team game, right? But I think Mecco brought that in and was able to back it up because he had come from a better team, and then able to reinforce other people doing it to other roles, right?
See, and I think that
And it
should
kind of
be
opened up the gambit there. Correct. I agree. But you have to think about Houston being a struggling team.
No. What I'm talking about is, you should, just like in the NFL, you should be watching film, and everybody should just get to see your mistakes over and over. And
Correct.
And like,
That's not how it goes into the NFL though either. Like the NFL,
Right.
they're not going to just pile onto a guy. There is some tact that has to happen. But it's the coaches that are doing that. It's not the players.
True.
Right.
Yes, true.
Yeah. And the coaches, I think, in Overwatch League are doing
Very
that.
true,
But
very
I think
true. Good
Mecco
point.
brought a more openness to not just when we're watching VODs, but in game. Hey, I need you to do this. Or, hey, you didn't heal me when I went in and I needed you to. Right? Like, Mecco brought more of a directness to the team than they previously had. And I think that that's really cool. But I think
awesome.
it's different, right?
But it's good though.
I agree.
Then it's funny because then if you hearing this, all I've been thinking about is how like Jexay is sort of like the other side of that coin, because what is it that Raucus puts on Twitter that made everybody cry, where Raucus is talking about how he's so down on himself, and Jexay picks him up, and like, if you're not crying after you read their
oh my god,
their back and forth, you're just not human. You're like, man, like if you weren't a fan of Jexay before that, if
oh my god,
you became a fan of Jexay after that, you don't even have to like Houston. You're like, I'm a Jexay fan after seeing him be like that, because you're like,
I was even telling Bob after the Houston Outlaws won against the Defiant, I swear to God, Jexay was the only one that was up and like, come on, guys. This is great. Like, come on. What are you doing? Like,
he was so excited. I'm so excited.
I love him. But yeah, I think it's the very opposite. And I think you bring up a good point that it's not like a Korean culture necessarily. It's a team culture. And it doesn't mean that just because NYXL was like this, it was because it was a fully Korean roster. It's just the culture that the team builds. And I think coaches need to really work on building a different team culture. And I've seen it just in my real life job, right? Where I manage a lot of people, and I can have the same people managed under somebody else performing very differently than they perform under a different person, right?
mm-hmm.
And it's not that they have different skills at that time. It's that their management is different.
And they perform
their job differently.
Which brings us back to the whole coaching thing I pointed out about Atlanta earlier, and having an elder as the coach maybe is a good thing.
I don't even think it's an elder. I'm not an elder, and I manage people very well. Sometimes. You know what I mean?
I know, because you're still 25, right?
Well, I'm only 21 for like the 12th time, but
Yeah.
you know.
But-
I see it too. So
Okay,
I
so-
totally believe it.
Why don't you? Okay, so the Outlaws had a really close game against the Spitfire, like really close, like they could have won.
Yes.
But tell me,
Because they played the right people on the right heroes.
yes, they did. But then they went above and beyond in their game against the Toronto Defiant, and they even played their best heroes on Dorado, and their best heroes were Doom and Dive on Dorado.
Which works on Dorado. It works on Dorado.
But hadn't worked for any other team prior.
I
So
think
they literally
the
stayed
biggest-
in. They literally went all in with the what are they calling that comp now? The Sombra Doomfist is the Hack Fist. So they
Yeah.
literally went all in on Hack Fist, and I'm pretty sure no one else has on Dorado. So Outlaws actually did something we've always wanted them to do all through season 2, is play to their strengths. Like we expected on that last map for Linkser to come in and them to play Scan and, McCree and May, but they didn't. So tell me how they won. Tell me how they won the match against Defiant.
Okay, but to be fair, I think I also would have been okay with them bringing out Linkser to play the
I know.
McCree.
Cool.
But-
But what I'm asking you is what happened here.
Well,
I think that the Outlaws played
Here,
a
let
better-
Labasco go.
Mm.
Mhm.
No, go ahead, Mel.
No.
You're too nice. I gave you
I
I
already
gave
said-
you the
I
floor.
know.
I am the master,
I'm
but
sorry,
go
I'm sorry,
go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Mel.
I can
I
wait.
could talk forever about the Outlaws, but I think the Outlaws played Toronto's meta better than Toronto played it. And I think Toronto didn't realize that Outlaws could play what they played because we had never showed it. Because we were meta slaves up until this week with Blasé on McCree, right? So Toronto had no
That was
time
basically what
to
I was
prepare
getting
for
at,
that.
is like you don't need to be meta slaves.
Which you can point to the growth of Harsha. That's something you can maybe point that at, right? Because Harsha is the one making the decision of who's going in, and based on who's in, we know what sort of compositions more than likely we're going to get.
Mhm.
So I think that you can point this to a guy who's in his first coaching position as a head coach and learning on the job. Unfortunately, that's kind of what has to happen sometimes. Like,
Right.
you're not going to be a perfect head coach when you first start doing it. You're going to have growing pains. And for the Outlaws, unfortunately, it meant 5 games lost in a row. But they
And-
are starting to play better. I mean, you have to give him credit for that.
Oh,
And they
we
did come
love
in-
Harsha here. Like
We do.
Harsha was one of the first guests on the podcast, and I think our first
as
returning
long as he
guest too.
keeps up
I
the,
mean,
as long as he
he's
keeps up the
awesome.
Houston success, we love him.
But
I mean, I'm just saying.
it's still, like you can't put it all on Harsha. Like even the starting, because Harsha's
Harsha
Harsha
new.
did-
staff.
Hold
Yeah.
on. Harsha did come out during the press conference after day 1 on when they lost against Spitfire, but it was very, very close, right? Harsha did come out in the press conference and say, like, I think that I really appreciated what our team brought. I think we brought it very close. I think what we did this week was we came in and we game planned for people playing characters that they're comfortable and confident on. And I think that that helped everything else. And that's one thing I wanted to say about Muma is that I think Muma has, yes, struggled. And we've beat that dead horse, right? But I think the biggest thing with Muma is that we saw Muma struggle and then we saw him gain his confidence on Winston because he's very good Winston.
Dude,
But even
that
when he had
freaking-
played Winston before,
that
hold on, even when
primal
he had played
rage
Winston
that
before,
he got right at the start of defense on freaking the moon base.
Horizon Lunar.
Yeah, dude. He got his Primal Rage almost instantly. It was unbelievable. The caster was like, he already has Primal Rage? What?
Right. So what I'm saying is that he gained confidence by playing Winston and playing it successfully, right? Because he didn't have the team there to help him play the Rhine successfully. But what I will say is that after he gained that confidence of playing Winston successfully, because the team around him was supporting him, we saw a good Rhine out of him.
Cool. So
confidence is huge.
Yeah, we've gotten all these confidence. Yeah. Back to my original question. How did Houston beat Defiant?
They played a better game.
Non-meta. I'm asking for the answer to this question.
I don't understand what that question is. They played a better game. Like, how is that a question?
It also felt like Toronto had a bad weekend too. Like, I think that's something that Toronto, when you look at it from Toronto's perspective, like Toronto, this was the worst showing we've seen from them. Like, they didn't look good in either of the games that they played. They were not the team that we saw compete with the Philadelphia Fusion. And I think, to me, that's a huge disappointment, because you want to see that team that was competing with Philadelphia. That's what we want to see, because that's also what makes the rest of the league better too. But not only that, like, these are players that you think should be able to compete with every single team. The fact that they didn't compete at all really this weekend leaves a lot of questions for the Toronto Defiant, but that doesn't change the answers that the Houston Outlaws found here today. And I think that's one thing that's important to point out too, is just because a team has a bad week, that doesn't mean that it negates everything else that the other team has happened.
Right.
Well,
did
you
Toronto
got closer.
Defiant look good against Philly though? Wait, let me get this. Did Toronto Defiant look good against Philly though, because they brought out something new, like the Chengdu Hunters did against Vancouver Titans, right? Something that people hadn't game planned for.
You're getting closer to what I'm looking
look?
for. You're getting closer. Yes, that's exactly what they did. And what I was trying to point towards is Toronto through fusions through a loop. Then the Outlaws through Toronto through even more of a loop. Toronto was great at using the hack fist against meta. But what Houston did was use hack fist against hack. Yeah, I can't say it.
Hack fist.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, Toronto started it last week, but did the Outlaws actually break the meta this week by playing it on maps people hadn't seen it yet?
It's hard to tell because we don't know how much that they had seen it prior. I think the other thing too is, like, it's not like that was solely why Toronto had a good game against the Philadelphia Fusion. I mean, they beat Carpe in a McCree versus McCree with Surefour.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that
Toronto
happened.
showed us that they could play both. And I think that's what was meaningful. Now, do you think that if Outlaws played Fusion on Dorado, that they could have beat them with the Doom hack? I don't know.
The Doom hack?
Whatever.
Doom hack. I actually like that better. Doom hack.
Hack fist is cool too. I like them both.
Hack fist. You gotta say it with enthusiasm. But no, I think Houston did something I haven't seen since Jake and Jake Rat in season 1, when they really just showed people you don't have to play meta. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I'm glad to see them back going to form. I'm glad to see Blase actually getting to perform on the heroes that he's good at. That poor man was forced to play McCree. I feel him. It's like when they tried to force AKM to play Genji. It made him a meme. Like, it was just mean. And
you know what's nutty is that Blase's Doomfist actually has more of highlight factors this week than actually seeing Linkster quick heads.
Well,
we finally got to see Linkster quick heads. Like, what?
Well, like Mel, remember was it week 1 or 2 when the Outlaws first played and Blase comes out and I was like, well, I mean, he's got a good Doom, and you're like, yeah, but Hydrations is better, and I agreed with you at the time, but now I'm not so sure. Like
Yeah, I
Blaz,
mean,
like
I had
Blaz,
just
like Blase went Doom to Doom with Achilles, and like Blase might be the best Doom in the league until we see Shipsa possibly play.
Achilles? You mean
I
agilities?
Agility, sorry.
I you're forgetting about Glister. I know Glister's not technically in the or Sparkle, excuse me. Wrong sparkling thing. Sparkle.
Glitter, sparkle.
Yeah, so you're forgetting Sparkle, you're forgetting a few other Doomfists. So Blase is up there. Yes, he's the best. He's
That
had the
we've
best
seen.
performance on Doom that we've seen so far
In season 3.
this season.
Yep.
Yes. That I can agree with. Is he the best Doomfist in the league? I can't say that.
Well, but like what I was just saying was I really thought that Hydration had a better Doom when we were first talking about that. And
I always thought Blase had the better Doom, like was the best Doom on
well,
the
see,
team.
I
That
just,
always thought.
I just didn't know a ton about Blase. Like literally all I knew about Blase was the Doom because he shined on it a little bit in season 2, you know, and so it was just interesting to me that the Outlaws actually took a stand and played off meta on something they hadn't seen played prior. Like we hadn't seen that on Dorado, and they did it. And they were like, all in, let's do this. Like Dante, and sorry, Wolf. Wolf called Dante one of the best Western Sombras. Sorry, bro, no. One of the best Sombras last year, not best Western Sombras. And you're muted, Mel.
Oh, yeah, I said that. I said, don't pigeonhole him as a Western player. He was a good Sombra compared to anybody.
Although I tried to defend Wolf and say maybe he was just defining him as a Western player and one of the best Sombras. But she was like, no, he wasn't doing that.
There's a lot of very good Sombras that haven't. I feel bad for Doha because he hasn't been able to show the Sombra the way that I know he can play the Sombra.
Yeah, dude,
there's a couple
not
of
even
other
close.
there's a couple of other
Mr. Alt holding on dude is what I call
There-
Doha.
there are some nutty Sombras in the league. Like Dante's definitely up there though. I think that's
Dante,
something
dude, just in that last
Huge
2-map
hacks.
run, how many EMPs did he have in just the last 2 maps? I mean, it was off the charts.
On
Almost
Dorado?
no, on the last 2 maps. Like he was just out of this world.
he
So
played so well.
Ults used on Dorado was 7.
Oh my god.
And
so
ults used on
7
Horizon
ults.
was 4.
so
That's a
my
lot of ults.
message to you Overwatch League teams and coaches is you do not have to play the meta. Play what your players are good at and synergize. That's all you have to do. Synergize ults. That's the name of the game. And stop worrying so much about doing exactly what everybody else does.
Yeah,
Make
I mean, I
it
think we preached this
exciting.
last year.
Yes, we've been preaching it for a
To
long freaking time.
Fruition with Houston specifically on like, listen, you suck at goats. I get it that you think that you can't win on something else, but you're legit not winning now. So what's the point of banging your head against?
What's it gonna hurt? Right. What's it gonna hurt to try something different? At the very least,
You'll be at
Throw it out on
Chengdu
stage.
and you'll get people excited for you.
exactly. The nice thing is though, is now everything's just out the window this coming week. Who knows how it's gonna actually be?
And thank
Right?
you for that transition, my friend, as we move on to hero pools. Hero pools for week 5. So they did a little like drawing thing, and I was a little upset with how they did it because Uber showed he had 8 of each hero, and he showed like the first one of all the stacks and then threw it in. I wanted to see something a little more transparent so that we could really truly believe that it was actually random. But I will say I'm kind of with Yiska, where I just want Sideshow to choose the meta every week and like just pretend that it's random. So
No, I don't. But to be fair, listen, Twitter.
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me
But
finish
no,
the intro
I
of
want
the
to
segment.
combat what you said about Uber.
You could
'Cause
combat
Twitter-
it afterwards. All right. So, hero pools for next week is DPS that are out, and this is horrible, is McCree, Widowmaker.
Mr. X is who we have to blame for this.
Yes.
Yes.
He has
100%.
one job.
Mr. X.
One job.
One job.
Get May
rid of
out.
May.
But, I mean, we might have already gotten rid of May with taking Reinhardt out. Ryan is the tank out, and then Moira is the healer out.
Which helps keep the Orisa out. That's the good thing about the Moira being out. So maybe you don't see that Orisa Sigma, Orisa Hog compositions that people are speculating. It seems like Dive may end up being the strongest. We still don't know yet. We don't know what anybody's going to come out with. We could see some teams try the Orisa. Some teams are going to try the Winston. I think you're going to see different styles from different teams. Is what it feels like we're going to have happen.
Well, okay. So Reinhardt out, Moira out, Widowmaker out, McCree out. Mel, what do you think's going to happen?
Okay, well, can I comment on your first comment first, since you wouldn't let me do that earlier?
You have permission.
Oh, thank you. Because what I wanted to say is you said that Uber only opened up one card, but after some Twitter rage, Uber opened up 3 of each card just to show us that it was not a hoax. He's like, apparently I'm supposed to open up more than one card now, so you guys realize that all of them say the same thing. And I was like, oh my God. But that's all I wanted to say about that. Give Uber a little credit. And I agree that I would have loved to have had May banned. So agree. But I think it's more interesting this way. I think it's more interesting to see what teams come out with without all of the meta heroes banned, right? Like you still have May available, but you don't have Ryan and McCree. So do you still play May with an Orisa and with an Anna and with a Lucio or a Baptiste or a Brig? Or do you go to Dive and do that? And how many people are going to come out week 1 and like kind of sucks for the people that play like
Hit
day
scan.
1? Well, yeah, Links are like posted on Twitter like, see you guys in a couple weeks. Like, there goes my heroes. I made my debut and we're out.
Well, that's the thing. Like in a couple weeks, it could get removed again.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. That's like kind of how it is with hero pools. I love this. Like I actually, the more that I'm thinking about the randomness of this all and the fact that these are the ones that we all got taken out, the more that I'm enjoying the chaos that's going to come from it.
Right.
Like the chaos is going to be great. Like things
because
that like
teams could have prepared if it was just the most played heroes. They would have known that May and
Diva.
Ryan and Diva were gonna be out, and Anna and Lucio, right?
yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of teams flexing their Pharah skills they haven't been able to flex, and their Mercy skills they haven't been able to flex for a while. And what are your hit scan, counters to that? Soldier and Ashe,
Which
I
aren't
think
bad.
Diva would have been banned.
I would have loved to see AKM play in this next week, and you could see where he made his name with freaking Soldier.
I don't think we'll see much pharmacy, to be honest.
You
I
really
think we
don't?
may see it. I've thought about it. I think we may see it on a few maps, yes. But I think with Divas still being in the pool,
And strong.
I think Diva's boosters
Diva's
and her
definitely
defense matrix
she
are
was already a counter
oppressive.
to Pharmacy. Now with the 3-second boosters, she's even more of a counter. But at the same time, she can't really kill the Pharmacy. So like she can keep it at bay, but I mean, your options are literally Tracer, not really. Ash and Soldier are your counters at the moment.
The
You're
problem
forgetting
is
about Anna too, though.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anna
can do
and
some, but
Diva-
if she's not healing, then that loses the fight on the ground. It depends on if it's Pharmacy versus Pharmacy as opposed to a ground team versus Pharmacy.
Which it could be. I mean, it could be Anna Baptiste ends up being something that gets used as a result if a team's using a Pharah. And then you
good
also
call,
have
good call.
Baptiste who can also deal with the Pharah too. Like there's
Good
still
call. I
so
had totally
much.
forgotten about Bap.
There's a lot that can still deal with the Pharmacy. So like I think that Mel's right on certain maps. You will see it. I think like maps with the big skyboxes where Pharah has already had it as their playground. I don't remember what the map pool is in this next week. I think it's still the same. So like there are certain maps where Pharah still can be played. But just because you remove McCree and Widowmaker doesn't mean that she's just instantly in. It's the
But
other.
those
think
are
she-
the biggest hit scan scares for her, though, for sure.
Correct. But I think she might be in when a team plays a composition that maybe doesn't have a hit scan player, because you can play other players, right? But say they're playing a composition where they don't have anybody that can flex to Ash or
Soldier.
Diva or Soldier or something, like you may see it more there, but I still think it's just going to be map specific on when she has open sightlines and when I think we'll see Pharah as much as we used to see Pharah before everybody got so good that they just destroyed Pharah.
I think the cooler thing we could see is a return to dive. Yes.
I'm
that
happy
would be
with that.
So cool. I would love to see the Genjis and the Tracers diving with the Winston. Oh, it would be music
Do you think
to
it'll
my
be
eyes.
Genji Tracer though, or do you think it'll be Doomfist Sombra?
It'll be. I
Might be
think
Sombra.
it could be. It could be a combination of both. It just depends on who you have on your team. You know, and I
Chips is going to see playing time.
I hope teams actually play to what their players are good at. Like that would be the best ever. Like if I could see EQO play some freaking Genji, I would just be jumping up and just like I'd be giddy as a little school girl.
I laugh that it's EQO. That's the one you pick.
Dude,
when
just go
there's-
back.
There's Who Are You?
Yeah,
in this
EQO is
coming
my boy,
weekend.
man. EQO is my boy.
Listen,
Sorry.
But you have to realize
don't
we
get-
didn't
Yes,
watch
I know.
Contenders or Tier 2
No,
or
I
anything.
did watch Who Are You though. He's the one that made me think Zachary was good.
Who Are You made you think Zachary was good? Yeah,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying
Fusion
because of how good
University.
Who Are You was.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Literally, like he made Zachary shine. And I was
Look
like,
good,
Zachary's gonna be awesome when he comes to Fuel. I'm so excited. And then he played Brig, and he did never get to prove himself. He still may be good, but we'll never know at this point because now Dallas has better DPS.
Apex Season 2 Finals. Who Are You? A monster. A monster.
Yes.
He is a monster on Genji. And then Haxel too. Like, well, Haxel's not playing, but still, like, there are Genjis that, like, as far as coming to mind before, there's just more that come to mind than
Well,
EQO.
and then you think about NYX XXL. If we're getting dive, Justice versus NYXL, we might get to see SBB controlling it as freaking Tracer. Like this is exciting. This is
What
this
does
is good for
Corey
the
play?
league. Hit scan. McCree,
he plays bench.
and he plays McCree and Widow.
Yeah, we've also seen him play Hanzo, and I mean, Does he play anything that is not McCree and Widow that could be in this meta? Hanzo? I think we could see some Hanzo.
I think you're more likely to
could.
see. I think you're more likely to see Tuba and Stratus than you are to see
Maybe.
Corey, and at least that's my
and
thought.
Stratus might be showing off his Pharah that he hasn't got to show off in the Overwatch League.
No, Stratus is already affirmed that he is a May 1 trick. So I don't think we can expect to see anything else from him.
I mean, May's still available, so maybe they play around Stratus as May.
Maybe they play. I bet Washington comes out and plays May Hanzo and says, "Forget you guys.
That's actually would be cool.
We will kill you."
What
That would
I
be cool.
worry about for next week, though, is what about the Uprising having 2 games and no fusions on Rhine?
I mean, fusions didn't look great. Let's be real. This
But
last
he
week
is
they put him
a
in.
great Rhine. But without Rhine,
He didn't look great on Rhine. I think
who do you
Axiom
play?
looked better on Rhine. Axiom.
No, you
They
have
started
Axiom.
Axiom before Fusion started this week, but we hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
Oh,
before.
good point. Okay.
I think
mean-
Axiom actually plays other tanks.
Well, so does
Correct me if
Fusions.
I'm
I mean,
wrong.
Fusions does play Winston. He's actually not a bad Winston.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Labasco. Stop being nice.
I mean, you've got to remember what's around him, though.
Said
too.
not bad.
True.
I didn't say he was good. But like you also have to consider what's around him too. So you can't really get a good tell of how good or how bad his Winston really is anyways.
Right.
But so like next week we have the Defiant, Mayhem, Eternal, Outlaws, Uprising, Justice, Fusion, NYXL, and Rain playing. So we have quite a diverse group playing next week. Who do you think out of the people playing next week are going to level up from these hero bands as opposed to leveling down?
Outlaws.
I mean, I definitely see the Outlaws looking good with the bands that came in.
Oh, poor Link, sir. Just got to play. Goodbye.
I feel like one that people haven't talked about as much. Like I think New York Excelsior is one that you could say, yeah, they have the potential to level up. The Fusion, I think, will be just fine, like with the DPS that they have. Like the one to me that like really I feel like people aren't talking about enough is the Toronto Defiant.
Yep.
Like Surefour plays whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like Surefour, this is like Surefour is going to thrive in this sort of thing. So I'm excited to see what they find as the best thing. And it is the first game too that we see the Defiant play the Mayhem. And like that game to me just in and of itself is an interesting one because like there's a lot of questions from both of these teams after last weekend for both Florida and Toronto. So as
Mhm.
far as a very like charged game for two teams that they're either going up or down after this and they've already been on a decline, like this is a huge game for both of them. So I think that first game ends up actually being a pretty decent barometer for how things could potentially go. Also, don't expect to see Saya player because his heroes are out. So BQB is going to keep playing. I know that for sure for Florida.
Right.
And I
think
you
Defiant
see.
is. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say no. You go because yours is on the same topic.
Yeah, just real fast. I think Defiant is going to game plan with their game plan against Mayhem, and I think they're going to come out successful. I think that they had a rough week this last week, but I think going into it, knowing they're not going to see Reiner McCree, they can game plan to their strengths, and they're the first game. They don't have to worry about what the meta is going to be, right? Like, I think they'll come out and destroy Mayhem. Not that I think Mayhem's awful, but I think they're going to get wiped.
Yeah, Mayhem's been a little bit weird, but I think a team that levels down for sure is Washington. I think Corey is your best dude, and Corey looks amazing when he's clicking heads. And I've never seen Corey play Ashe, so I don't even know if that's like something you could sub in.
I'm sure he does. I mean, Ashe is so similar to both Widowmaker and McCree Like, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to play it. The one
Yeah.
thing, there's heroes that we haven't even thought about that could potentially come in here with some of the things that we're seeing. Like Bastion, we've already seen Symmetra, like heroes that you don't normally see. They could end up getting played here. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
We have no idea. But like if
I mean, I feel like you could see more Reaper. I feel like Corey plays a Tracer. He could play Tracer with Genji.
He plays Tracer. He doesn't. Yeah, you're never gonna say Corey. Oh man, it's like Urster's Tracer.
How do you know that though? How do you know that though? All we've seen him on
comes back.
Correct.
Because he comes back at the very end of maps on Tracer.
Okay, but the dire
everybody.
moment on maps on Tracer, you're rarely seeing any skilled crucial plays happening, right? Like most of the time.
I've seen Urster.
Yes.
Fun fact about Urster, by the way, just really quick. Urster on his Contenders team wasn't the Tracer player when he was in Contenders China.
What was he?
He was the Genji.
Oh.
Just a fun thing to throw out there to let you know.
But
That
I
is
mean
good to know.
that makes sense because he is basically the flex DPS. Like the fact that he can play Tracer too is just a boon.
Yeah, it's wild.
I don't think Houston. I don't think. Sorry, my mind always goes.
Always Houston.
But,
Jesus.
No, I don't think that Justice suffers as much as you guys think they do. To be honest, I'm more worried about Paris. And I say that because I think
Paris has been meta slaves this entire season so far.
Right, but I think they've been meta slaves.
been
But
good
I
at
also
it.
think
Yeah, they've been good
you
at
let me
this meta.
finish?
Sorry.
I also think that Paris is very good when they have a game plan coming in, and you have not seen Paris change up their game plan because they've been able to outplay people with their game plan, right? So them coming into a new meta game 2 where they're not going to have any time to prepare for what Houston's going to bring. No, actually they probably have, but I think that Eternal's communication and coordination will be less this week than it was previously.
To that point, there are certain people that you won't have to worry about on Paris. You don't have to worry about FD God because he is so good. I don't think you have to worry about their
Come on.
I'm just saying. I'm saying like as far as problems for Paris Eternal. I'm just going from player to player.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So their support line I think is going to be okay. Like FD God being sort of the anchor of that support line. Their DPS Xy's just good. I don't think you have to really worry about him. What you play off of that, I don't know if it really matters.
What does Xy play?
Symmetra. No, he can play more than just that. He has a pretty good hero pool. Like I think they'll find something for Xy to play on. Where I'm more concerned is the main tank spot.
Yeah.
Because Ben Best is a Reinhardt player.
Yep.
That's where I think they lose the most. Hanbin, you don't have to worry about. Like, if you're off tank, Hanbin is he's staying on Diva. He's good. You don't have to worry about him at all.
Right.
But
who do they have? They have No Smite, who is also a main tank.
Yes, I think they do still have No Smite. So
and they have Smex.
Ben Best is just so good looking.
Smex
he's just going to push through.
Yeah.
Like he's just going to push through.
He can't. Listen, that man can play Reinhardt and that's it. Okay.
But he is so good looking. He is so good looking. It's just.
Are you sure?
I'm totally. Actually, that's a really good point that I hadn't thought about on Paris.
No Smite though could come in and play Winston probably though. Like I don't know how Ben Best is on Orisa. Maybe he's okay on Orisa. Like there are things that they can potentially do. I think the bigger question though is DPS. Like, what is Xy gonna play,
dude? And I don't know. Like I've only seen him just be like literally the best McCree I've ever seen. So I don't.
He's a good Widow. And those are both out.
Yeah,
I've seen him good on Symmetra.
He's an unbelievable McCree. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like he's okay with it. I don't know what else he does.
This may be when you see soon. That's something to consider.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you could see soon. I mean, because right
Soon
now we're
back
seeing
on
Exy
Tracer.
It's possible.
What?
Soon's their only other DPS. Like they've got Nico, Exy, and Soon. Those are their only 3 DPS, which is funny. They've got like 4 supports and 4 tanks, but whatever.
Poor Shadowburn.
Well,
Switch around.
because they don't have Sparkle yet. You're forgetting about Sparkle.
You're right.
Just
But he's not there yet, so
No, they gotta wait till
at this moment in time, it doesn't matter.
right.
All right.
So
But like,
All right, well,
that's
guys,
we could see soon.
Yeah.
we are going to have to wrap that up there. We are going to do a extremely fast, with no explanation, quick fire pick for the games next week. Starting off first, Defiant versus Mayhem Labasco. Who wins?
I got Defiant in this one.
Mel.
Defiant.
I'm going to go Mayhem. All right. Eternal versus
Sorry.
Outlaws. Mel.
Outlaws.
And Labasco?
Paris. Sorry, Mel.
Sucker.
I'm going Outlaws. Just because
Wow.
just because of Ben Best. See,
You
I just
convinced
broke
me to
I
pick
just
my
broke
team.
my own rule. All right. Uprising versus Justice. Mel.
Justice. I don't care.
Lobo.
They don't have Munchkin anymore. Justice.
Justice. All right. Eternal versus Fusion. Labasco.
Fusion.
Fusion.
Fusion. All right. NYXL versus Justice. Labasco.
Nixel.
Nixel.
Nixel. All right. Uprising versus Rain. Mel.
Rain.
ATL.
Rain. All right. Sorry we had to do that so fast, but we have had a long show, guys, and I have to
I
wrap
blame
it up.
Mobasco.
No,
It's all my fault.
I think it's been a great show, so like there's no problem with it. It's just like we are Al Recap. We normally talk about the games that happened prior. We put more emphasis on that rather than talking about the games that are coming up. So
Right, because
did
we don't
quick
like to be
fire.
wrong. So we like to talk about what already happened.
Yeah.
So you know.
Well, I've won pick'ems so many years in a row that I'm just always right.
Oh, yeah. Listen, we're married and you are definitely never right. Sorry.
Well, in marriage, no. But in Overwatch League, I'm often right. I was the only person in podcasting, in probably content creation abound, that called NYXL's first loss in season 1 against the Fusion. So
Okay, yeah, you just say that because nobody can remember legit back to that time. So
But that's a good way to go
that's
about
the
it.
beauty of it. I'll
you see
recap.
how
You
it
can
is?
go ahead and go back to our episodes and listen to me
Yeah.
call it, and then
that
you will
effort
know.
level, though, that effort level is really high, and it's just
But
not gonna
either
happen.
way, no one's going to be able to call me out on Twitter and be like, Bob, you did not say that. Nope, Bob did say that.
If somebody wants to go back and find that Bob did not say that, I would love you.
Yeah, well, I remember it vividly with Aid Morrow being like, I don't understand how you called that. I was like, just because that's what I saw. But
Well, one
yeah.
thing I hope to remember vividly, just because Ramsey's asked, he asked, when is sugar-free Overwatch League eligible? And to answer that question, I can tell you right now, he's got 1,018 days, 34 minutes, and 9 seconds. So one of the best American DPS. We've still got that long to wait before he can come in. So thanks for asking, Ramsey.
Oh.
And
What is
Sugar
he, like,
Daddy's going to
12?
be on the show next week. Not.
Sugar free, not sugar daddy. Why are
Well,
you
Sugar
trying to-
Dad is
Sugar Dad is his dad.
on Twitter. His dad is awesome.
Shut up. That's amazing.
Yes.
I will say, I really love Linkser's mom. and she always, I don't even know her, but she always likes my tweets, and I love her.
I love Baby Bay's mom and
Oh,
Jake's
I
mom.
also
I've
love
met
her.
them both, and they are both fabulous ladies.
I
But
also love them too, but they're not an outlaw, so can't love them that much.
but that's going to be it for the show this week. I'd like to thank everybody for coming in. Chat was on fire. Thank you guys so much. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at AlRecap. If you want to send us something a bit longer, it's contact@alrecap.com. If you want to watch us on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/alrecap, and soon to be youtube.com/alrecap. Leave us some
Soon to
reviews,
be?
guys. Yeah, because I'm going to stream on both platforms at the same time.
Sorry.
So, guys, we haven't had an iTunes review in forever. We want to read them on the show. Leave us one. You can do it on your phone. It's easy. Just do it.
It's not that easy.
Do it.
I don't blame you guys.
Do it.
But if you want to send us emails, I
Do it.
will shout out the guy that has sent us emails.
Do it. Do it. Yeah. Just give us some reviews. If you guys want to interact with us more, you can join our Discord at discord.me/omniclab. We just had our game night last Friday. Ramses beat the crap out of me on Reinhardt. He just showed me, he showed me the error of my ways and that, I just probably shouldn't even be playing the game. And
That's true.
guys, thank you so much for staying for this long episode. Mel, where can we find you?
Anywhere where Houston's at. No, you can find me on Twitter at MelOverwatch.
And Labasco from Push the Point. Ramses and Labasco on Push the Point on mashthosebuttons.com. It's a badass. I mean, it literally is just the mecca of gaming podcasts. Like, Labasco, where can we find you?
At Labasco is where you find me. If you want to find the podcast I'm on, just search Push the Point on any podcast platform. Our Twitter is at PushPointPod. You can reach out to us there too. Ramses is the one who controls that more than I do. I really need to get back to remembering how to log into that because I don't. I just let Ramses
awful
do it
at
all.
Twitter. I'm awful at Twitter. I wish I had a Twitter person.
We
don't have a Twitter person.
I'm my Twitter person, and I don't know what I'm doing. So, yeah, you don't really need to know what you're doing in order to be good at Twitter. You just got to get lucky. That's really all it is. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. I tweet about dumb stuff I retweet whenever our podcast comes out, and then whatever I'm doing broadcast wise, I always tweet it there too. So.
And Lobasco, I talked to Ramses about this, but in leading up to starting Owl, you guys had these segments where it was Nick from Mash Those Buttons that was reading them, but
Right.
was it you and Ramses that wrote those
Yes.
write-ups? Dude, those were awesome. I mean, I thought those were awesome, and I thought it was really cool that you guys chose a different voice to voice them. I thought that was next level.
That's credit to Jaw too, because he was the one who, we had this idea and he helped us do that and also helped us have somebody else voice it. That's always something that, as somebody who has a radio background, that sort of audio production is something that I love. So the fact that we get to work with somebody as awesome as Jaw to make that all happen, I mean, it was a lot of fun to do those previews.
But it was you and Ramses writing it, right?
Yeah, Ramses and I wrote them. I think Ramses wrote 3/4. I did one of the divisions, and then I wrote part of the other division, but didn't edit it. He did most of the editing of all of that, though, of as far as cleaning it up.
You guys
awesome.
killed it, and I loved it. And of course, Jaw is my sensei of podcasting. He's the guy that brought me in, showed me the ropes, taught me how to edit audio. I mean, the guy is just one unbelievable dude. And so I'm so happy you guys are doing Push the Point with Jaw on mashlessbuttons.com. So everybody make sure to check that out. I am BlazzinBob. You can find me on Twitter at BLAZZIN_BOB. We're gonna leave you tonight, guys. It's been a long show.
Bye. It was legit my fault, not yours, Lebosco. Sorry.
Oh, I'm totally
Got their first win.
I'm totally saving that audio excerpt.
No. Admitting I'm wrong.
I mean, I didn't come.